Lesson 10.5 is factoring, and that's what we're going to be working on today, is how to factor a quadratic equation. Now, we were used to, right before spring break, seeing a problem that looked a lot like this right down here. And we used this method, FOIL, in order to solve that, to turn it into a quadratic equation. So FOIL stands for first, outer, inner, last, if you remember. That's the order in which we multiply the binomials. Now, what we're going to do today is when we would FOIL, we would get an answer that looks like this. What we're going to do today is we're going to start with a problem that looks like this and end up with an answer like this. So we're basically just working backwards, okay? And there's a certain process in order to do that. Now, I do not teach factoring the same way that the book does. So you are going to want to make sure and write down all 4 of these steps, because these steps will not be in your book for you to look back at when either you're doing homework or studying for the test. Okay, you're going to want to look back at these notes. So this is how you would do factoring. And factoring is so important because whenever you factor, normally factoring is just the first step to doing something else, especially once you get into Algebra 2. If you go into liberal arts math, you have to know how to factor. If you go into geometry, you know how to factor. Trig. Factoring does not leave. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to learn how to do that. First and foremost, okay, we have a quadratic equation. If you remember, a quadratic equation is normally ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, a lot of times you will have an a or a number in front of x squared, but a lot of times you won't. And what we're going to be dealing with today is we're going to be dealing with quadratic equations that do not have a number in front of x squared. First of all, if I don't see a number there, what do I know is there? 1, okay? But I am not even worried about writing that 1. I don't want to bother with it. It doesn't add anything to my problem if I write it, and it doesn't take anything away if I don't write it. So I'm just going to skip that step, and I'm going to leave it as x squared plus bx plus c. What I've done here is I've given us an example equation, x squared plus 6x plus 8. In this equation, b would be equal to 6, and c would be equal to 8, okay? That's what each of those letters stand for. Obviously, there is no a or it's a 1, but I'm not even going to worry about writing it, okay? So, step number 1 is to list the factors of c. Factors are the two numbers that multiply together to give you 8. So what I've done is I like to start with 1 and go up to 10. Because normally if you go to 10, you will most likely, unless you have a really big number, include all the factors. So I say, okay, 1. 1 times 8 equals 8. So I write that down. Okay? What I like to do is I like to start like this, and I go 8 equals 1 times 8. Then I say, okay, 2. 2 times 4 equals 8. 3 times nothing, 4. 4 times 2, but I've already written that, so I don't even have to write it. 5, nothing, 6, nothing, 7, nothing, 8 times 1, but I've already written it, 9, nothing, 10, nothing, okay? So these are the only two sets of numbers that are my factors of 8. Now, what I do is I look, and step number 2, I said, if c is a positive number. Now, this is where I really want you to pay attention and listen up, because this is the step that trips people up. Okay, if c is a positive number, let's look. Is it a positive number? Yes, it's plus 8. Now, if that was a minus sign, 8 would be a negative number. So if c is positive, I look for the two factors that are going to add together to give me the same number that I have b. 1 plus 8. Does 1 plus 8 equal 6? No, it does not. It equals 9. Does 2 plus 4 equal 6? Yes, it does. Okay, so I know that 2 and 4 are going to be the factors that I use. All right, we'll come back and go over some other problems that are not positive and that are negative, so I can show you exactly what to do with those. But for this step right here, 8 is positive, so I look to see the two factors that add together to give me 6, or B. Okay? Now, every time you factor, and there is no a or no number in front of x squared, you can always set up your problem as 2 parentheses, and the first term in each parenthesis is always going to be x. It's never going to be anything different. Never. Never, ever, ever going to be anything different. Okay? X and x. As long as there is no a in front of x. Now, tomorrow we'll deal with a number in front of x squared, but today we're not. So I just write x and x. I know the two numbers that I'm going to use are 2 and 4, so I write 2 and 4. And if you decide to write 4 and 2, it doesn't matter. You're going to get the exact same answer. It does not matter which order you write these in. Now, this is the part that trips people up. I've got to figure out, do I need a plus, 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 minus, minus, plus, or minus, minus? Okay, I got to figure out the signs that I need to have. First of all, C is positive. There is a plus sign right here. So I look for the factors that add together to give me 6. Is 6 positive or negative? Positive. So I know that both 2 and 4 have to be positive. Since they have to add together, I know that it has to be 2 plus 4. 6 is positive, so each of these have to be a plus sign. Now, once I've done that, this is my final answer. This is my polynomial factored. Okay, this is my quadratic equation that has been factored. That is my final answer. Now, if I wanted to check my answer, which is what I want you guys to do for at least tonight's homework, okay, you would FOIL. What I can do is I can just say, okay, if I FOILed this equation, am I going to get this exact same answer? So let's FOIL that and check it. So first, x times x is x squared. Outer, x times 4 is 4x. Inner, x times 2 is, x times 2 is 2x. 2 times 4, last, is 8. All right, like terms together, x squared plus 6x plus 8. Did this check out with my beginning problem? X squared plus 6x equals 8. Yes. So I know I have the right answer. Now, on these problems, it's easy to get tripped up with what signs that you need, like a plus plus or a plus minus, like I said, or even sometimes what numbers you need. But you can always check to see if you have the right answer. There's no reason to get any of these wrong because you can always check to see, did I do this correctly? Okay, there's always a way to find out, is it right? So, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start these. Remember, I want you to be looking back at your steps, okay? And we can go through. First of all, let's identify C, because first step, I have to list the factors of C. In this equation, what number is C? Anybody? 3. Very good. C is 3. So I'm going to write right above it, C equals 3. So I need to list the factors. Okay, let's start. 1 times 3 equals 3. 2 times anything equal 3? No. 3 times 1, but I've already written it right there. 1 times 3. 4? No. 5? No. 6? No. I'm just going to keep going. 7, no. 8, no. 9, no. 10, no. Okay? I know that the only two factors that 3 has is 1 times 3. So that has to be what I'm going to use. All right? So I need to ask myself this. When I FOIL, first of all, if there's no number right here in front of x squared, I know my answer is always going to be 2 parentheses. What is the first term in each parentheses going to be? X, always. Since there's only one set of factors, I'm going to write 1 and 3. Now I've got to figure out my signs. So I look back. I know that 3 is positive, so they have to add together to give me 4. Okay? And what is 4? Is 4 positive or negative? Positive. So these both have to be a plus sign. Okay? This is my final answer. Let's check it really quick and make sure I've got it right, because I want you to remember that you can always find out, do I have the right answer? So let's FOIL this. First, x times x is x squared. Outer, 3 times x is 3x. Inner, 1 times x is 1x. Last, 1 times 3 is 3. What is 1 times 3? 3. Please don't put 4. I have so many people that sit there and go, 1 times 3 is 4. No, we're not adding. You always multiply when you FOIL. Now, when I combine like terms, that's when I add. X squared plus 4x plus 3. Did this check out with our original problem? Yes, it did. So I know that what I have is the correct answer. X plus 1 times x plus 3. All right, let's do the same thing. All right. What is C in this equation? 6. All right. So let's list the factors of 6. 1 times 6. 2 times 3. Are there any other factors of 6? No, there are not. Okay. Now I've got to find the ones that add together to give me 5. 1 plus 6. Does that add together to give me 5? No. 2 plus 3. Does that add together to give me 5? Yes. All right, so I know that 2 plus 3 is my winner. That's going to be what's going to be in my answer. What is the first term always going to be? X. Then I'm going to plug in my numbers, 2 and 3. Now, listen carefully. This is where we got to figure out what signs am I using. So I say, okay, they have to add together to give me 6. But what is 5? Negative. It is a negative number. So both of these have to be negative, okay? Both of them have to be negative. Yes? What if 6 is negative? We'll get to that next one, okay? Right now, we're just working with C is positive, okay? There's 4 different types of these equations. There's one when C is positive, and then there's one where B is positive or B is negative, and then there's 2 where C is negative, when B is negative and B is positive. Okay, we'll go over those next. But look right here. Anytime C is a positive number, I know automatically for a fact it's either going to be 2 plus signs or 2 minus signs. It's never going to be one of each when C is positive. And how I know that is if B is positive, it's going to be 2 plus signs. If B is negative right here, then it's going to be 2 minus signs. Always. Always, always, always. Okay, does everybody hear that? So if C is positive, it's always going to be 2 of the exact same sign. And it all depends on B. If B is positive, they're 2 plus signs. If B is negative, 2 negative signs. Okay? Let's FOIL this just to double check and make sure. First, x times x is x squared. X times negative 3 is negative 3x. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 3 is what? Positive 6. Let's add like terms. Same signs, negative, negative, so I add and keep. X squared minus 5x plus 6. So do you see how that worked out? That even though I had 2 negative signs, that C is going to be a positive number because negative 2 times negative 3 equals a positive number. Did this check out with my original equation? Yes, it did. So I know I have the right answer. All right, let's move on to the next type, where C is going to become a negative number. Okay? I'm going to flip back really quickly here to that very first page where I had all the instructions. All right, let's look at this. It says, if C is a negative number, look to see which factors subtract to give you B. If C is a negative number, look which factors subtract to give you B. Okay? Keep that in mind. So I look. First of all, I'm going to start off the exact same way that I do every time. Let's list the factors of C. Sasha, what is C in this equation? Negative 12. So I'm going to write 12. The factors of 12 are 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Anything with 5? No. Anything with 6? Yes, 2, but I've already written it. Anything with 7? No. Anything with 8? No. 9? No. 10? No. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop there. So these are my three options. And I look, is C a negative number? Yes, it is. So I've got to figure out which one of these factors are going to subtract to give me 11. Okay? 12 minus 1 is 11. Okay? I think that's going to work. Because what's 6 minus 2? 4. 4 minus 3? 1. So I know it can't be either of these. These are the factors that I'm going to use. So, as always, what is my first term going to be? X and X. My numbers are going to be 1 and 12. Now, since they have to subtract together, since C is a negative number, I'm always going to have a plus and a minus sign. Always. Now, they're not always going to be in that order. It may be minus plus or plus minus, okay? But it's always going to be two different signs. It's not going to be the same like before when C was positive. So what I look at is I look at B. B is what? Negative 11. So since this number is negative, I put my negative sign with the largest number. I have a 1 and a 12. Where's that negative sign going with? The 12. So I know the other one has to get a plus. It's always going to be opposite signs, plus and minus, and it all depends on what B is. If B is positive, the plus sign goes with the biggest number. If B is negative, the minus sign goes with the biggest number. Okay? Does that make sense? It's always going to be opposite signs. All right? And I always look at B to find which sign goes where. Let's FOIL this and double check our work. X times X is X squared. Negative 12 times X is negative 12X. Positive 1 times X is 1X. Positive 1 times negative 12 is negative 12. Negative 12 plus 1. Different signs, so I subtract and take. X squared minus 11X minus 12. Did this check out? Yes, it did. Now, this is what I don't want you to get confused on, and this is what a lot of people do. They automatically go back to this original equation and they say, since there are two minus signs, there has to be two minus signs here. And that is not true. That is never going to be true. As long as C is a negative number, you're always going to have a plus minus. Always. Okay? So let's go to this next one. Negative 18, so I know my signs have to be plus and minus right off the bat. All right, but let's list the factors of 18. 1 times 18, 2 times 9, 3 times 6. Any other factors? Nope. So, since C is a negative number, I have to ask myself, which ones subtract together to give me 17? 18 and 1. Okay, this one just so happened to be each of these both worked out to be the terms with 1. Now, that's not always going to be your case, all right? Like always, what's going to come first in my factoring? The x's. Now, I'm going to write the 1 and the 18 as soon as my computer catches up. All right? And I've got to look. So let's look before we even do this. What is b in this equation? Positive or negative? Positive. So the plus sign has to go where? To the biggest number. Exactly. Okay? So my biggest number, is it going to be 1 or 18? 18. Okay. There we go. So my x's, I have a 1 and an 18. I know that plus sign has to go with the biggest number. So what does one sign have to be? A negative. Let's check my answers just in case. X times x is x squared. X times 18 is positive 18x. Negative 1 times x is negative 1x. Negative 1 times 18 is negative 18. 18 minus 1 is x squared plus 17x minus 18. Did this check out with my original? Yes, it did, so I know I have the right answer. Now, if you FOIL here and you realize I have the right terms, but I have a negative 17, okay, as my answer, all that means is I just put the wrong sign with the wrong number. So just flip your signs. You might have accidentally made 1 the positive and 18 the negative. All you got to do there is if you FOIL it out and see, oh, I have wrong signs, just flip the signs and your answer will be correct, okay? Now you may FOIL that and realize, oops, I used 2 and 19 instead of, I'm sorry, not 2 and 19, 2 and 9 instead of 1 and 18. You're going to get a totally different answer, okay? You would get like x squared plus 7x minus 18, okay? So that's why FOIL is important, because you can check and figure out, okay, I've done something wrong here. All right? So that is how you factor. Like I said, this is not the way that the book teaches. So you're going to want to memorize those steps that I gave you at the beginning, because you will use them for the rest of the year. I mean, the rest of chapter 10 uses factoring. The rest of chapter 11 uses factoring. Okay, we're not going to get away from it this year. All right? So that ends 10.5.